what's in a name? When it comes to our nation's military installations, more than you might be aware of, as our David Martin will explain.
What was galling is that we would still, in this day and age, have names of bases that represented traitors who fought against their country for the purpose of slavery.
Retired Lieutenant General Tom Bostic is a member of the commission charged with renaming Army bases named in honor of Confederate generals.
The way you say it, the next question is, what took so long?
I wonder myself what took so long.
Here in rural Southern Virginia, change comes very slowly, and we don't always embrace change.
Billy Colburn is the former mayor of Blackstone, Virginia, the town nearest Fort Pickett, named after General George Pickett, who led the famous last charge of the Confederates at the Battle of Gettysburg.
There are many people I talk to, and many of them are dear friends of mine, that are strongly opposed to it being renamed.
Is that because they think the name of Pickett should be honored?
You know, are there people here that still believe that the South had a right to secede? I mean, I don't know anyone that says slavery was okay. There's none of that still around.
Colburn is also editor of the local paper which covered the opening of the fort during World War II.
Pickett was dedicated on the anniversary of Pickett's charge back on July 3rd, 1942, and they even picked the time of the charge. It was dedicated at 3:15 in the afternoon.
The governor of Virginia was quoted as saying, "Pickett stands with Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson among the immortals." History tells a different story.
12,500 Confederate soldiers from 3 divisions attack to this position. Ends up being called Pickett's Charge, and it is an absolute and utter catastrophe.
Retired Brigadier General Ty Sidgely taught history at West Point and would take his students on walks over the battlefield.
A little less than a mile coming up here.
With no cover.
And so they came into this kill zone and just were slaughtered.
What became of Pickett?
Pickett survives, and in 1864, he summarily executes 23 U.S. Army soldiers. And after the war, he skedaddles to Canada because he thinks he's going to be hanged as a war criminal.
The man who ordered Pickett to charge was, of course, Robert E. Lee, who quit the U.S. Army to command the Confederate forces. He's remembered at Gettysburg by this giant statue.
The idea was that Lee was a hero. How ironic that a person trying to destroy the United States of America becomes the great American.
Makes you wonder who won the battle.
Yes, the United States Army won the battle, no doubt about it. But who won the memory of that battle?
I'd say the majority of folks around here would tell you in a heartbeat, keep it Pickett.
Danny Clary is chief of the fort's fire station, where you couldn't turn around without seeing the name Pickett.
So how do you feel about it coming down?
Sad. I understand why they're doing it, but it's been here a long time, and it's going to take a lot of people a while to adjust.
But it is now Fort Barfoot, after Colonel Van Barfoot, who received the Medal of Honor for his bravery in World War II. The first Army base in the United States to be named after a Native American.
Congress can pass laws and commissions can issue reports, but somebody's got to do the work.
Somebody's got to do the work, that's right.
Kyle G. runs the sheet metal shop, which has been turning out the new signs. You never realize how many there are until you start changing them. Fort Barfoot is one of 9 Army bases which will no longer be named in honor of Confederates.
Commemoration is about our values. It's about to inspire people.
Who would stand up in processing a lot of new soldiers coming to Fort Bragg and say, let me tell you about the history of this name. Braxton Bragg was one of the worst generals in the Confederate Army.
This week, Fort Bragg, North Carolina will become Fort Liberty. Fort Polk in Louisiana is also due for a name change.
Polk was the most incompetent general of the war.
Fort Benning, named after a charter member of the Ku Klux Klan, has already changed to Fort Moore, after Hal and Julia Moore. He was the commander of American troops in the first head-to-head battle against the North Vietnamese. She forever changed the impersonal system which sent regret-to-inform-you telegrams to families of the fallen.
Julia Moore saw this happening, and she said, not on my watch. I will personally deliver that telegram, and I will put my arms around that family member.
It's not just base names, it's all the Confederate memorials and artifacts strewn across U.S. military installations.
Were you surprised at the degree to which Confederate memorabilia is embedded in the Army culture?
I was surprised. There were hundreds of things that needed to change. There's Lee Gate and Lee Housing Area and Lee Barracks at West Point.
With all these names about to disappear, some people are going to say you are erasing history.
The battles that Lee fought in will still be studied. So we're not erasing history. What we are doing is commemorating the right leaders.
We're not going to end racism in one fell swoop, but this isn't a bad place to start.